All right, welcome back to another episode of Run Mountain Peaks. We're back in the White Mountains. I haven't been up here in probably like a month. Been busy, been staying down south doing local peaks, but we're back. I did the Osceolas today, and it was full winter conditions. I mean, snow from the trailhead to the summits, and it just feels good to be back. Anytime, probably like once or twice a year, I'll go like a few weeks, maybe a month, like November and April, maybe. I don't get all the way up in the whites for a month, but it always feels really good to be back on the trails. Something about the air up in those peaks, I don't know. It just felt really good. I felt kind of back to normal, back in my element, and yeah, really enjoyed the conditions today. And it was decent winter conditions. It was better than like typical November shoulder season conditions, but we're definitely getting into winter. So the topics I want to talk about today, I got a question about shoes, road shoes, trail shoes, winter footwear, and I thought today, because it is like starting to get winter, we got snow in the high peaks and snow is coming, cold weather, I wanted to talk about winter footwear, what I wear when I'm running out on these trails, as far as shoes, spikes, snowshoes. I want to do kind of like a full breakdown of what I wear for footwear. I will touch on the road and trail shoes, what I wear during training, just so put that out there. And then I thought it would be a good time to talk about winter Strava segments, a-hole Strava segment season. That's what some people call it. And then pair that with the winter FKTs and FKT culture talk. I have some thoughts about like the trail conditions during the winter, Strava segments in the winter, FKTs in the winter. So we'll just talk about all that stuff because we really are getting into the winter running season, which, by the way, is one of my favorite seasons of running. Obviously, the spring, the trail season, like when the trails are dry, is awesome. That's probably like the favorite, like spring into summer. But winter is probably like my second favorite time for trail running. When the trails up here get all snowed in and packed down, it can be really, really fun. So, yeah, I figured do a few winter topics now that we're getting into that season. The JFK 50 miler and the Ascutney Backyard Ultra are happening today. I hadn't talked about the JFK 50 miler last week. We did an Ascutney Backyard preview, so that's ongoing right now as we speak. So we won't have the results. We'll go through them next week's episode. But the JFK 50 miler, honestly, it's going to be probably over pretty quick for some of the top guys. But yeah, JFK 50 miler is one of like the oldest ultra marathons. I think this is the 63rd annual ultra marathon that JFK has run. So it's pretty much a road race. It's not really a trail race, but it's one of the big, iconic U.S. ultra marathons. And people go there, put down crazy times, and get pro contracts from it. So that's kind of like just a fun race to follow. So that's going on today. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. Next up, we're going to talk about winter cross training this week. So in the last episode, I was sick. This week, at the beginning of the week, I was still feeling, I wasn't really sick anymore, but your body's really weak. You're getting back into activity and everything. So I was kind of pulling out of it, and it was really cold this week. So pretty much just in the mornings, I did not want to go outside. And so I did a couple cross training sessions at the gym. And in the winter, honestly, I do a ton of cross training. And so I wanted to kind of dive into some of the things that I do and just talk about some of the cross training alternatives. When you wake up and you check the temps and it's 20 degrees out and you're like, I don't know if I want to go for an easy run right now. So we'll talk about cross training. Motivation Minute, we're going to bring that back. I got another quote for you on that one. And I shouldn't give any spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers. And then the last topic I have here is Kung Fu Panda recap and T-Era. We're just gonna again not elaborate further. You'll just have to wait till the end for those. So yeah, we got a few different topics here. Some winter running topics, a couple races, and then some fun stuff at the end. So that's what we got on the agenda. Yeah. So like I said, I did the Osceolas today. It was honestly, it was pretty good conditions. I hadn't been up here in a while. I was reading trail reports, and trail reports give you a pretty good, a lot of people do the trail reports. It's like New Hampshire or New England Trail Conditions.com. They'll put out a lot of good trail reports. So you can always go through, and even if your peak that you're going to do isn't on there, similar peaks nearby are going to be on there, and you can get a good idea of, hey, do I need to bring, what do I need to bring really? But the conditions were good. I ended up bringing snowshoes, and I brought micro spikes, and I didn't wear either of them. I just used my studded trail runners for the whole time. Up to about 4,000 feet, there's a little bit of snow, but it's all packed down, and there's a ton of rock still exposed. So snowshoes aren't really going to be good yet. Like, you can't really use snowshoes when there's exposed rocks. And then above 4,000 feet, there was enough snow that snowshoes, maybe like some powdery snow, that snowshoes kind of would have made it a little bit easier, but it was nothing that I put them on for. I usually, if I don't have to wear them, if I'm not post-holing, I don't really like to put them on or carry them really, although I did carry them today. So all in all, it was good conditions. And I wanted to do a breakdown of the winter footwear that I use for different kind of conditions now that we're coming up into the season. So I guess starting at like layer 1, there are a good amount of times in the winter that you can just wear trail shoes. That is like level 1. There are some people up here in the Whites that wear trail shoes just year round, if the trails are kind of packed. And so if the trails, it's all going to be, so we'll talk about trail conditions and when to wear what. When to wear what. Does that make sense? I think it does. But yeah, if you have a really good, solid, packed trail and it's not super soft and it's not icy, it's just like very compacted. People with snowshoes came down, it melted a little bit, and then it freezes overnight. Those trail conditions are like extremely good, and you can just wear regular trail shoes, not even wear studs. And so I wouldn't do that as much in the Whites, but around me locally, there will be a lot of times that I just wear regular trail shoes. So that's like level 1. I wouldn't really recommend that for typical winter footwear, but that's like level 1 winter footwear. The next step up from regular trail shoes would be studded trail shoes. And this is what I wear 95% of the time in the winter. I mean, I usually wear, I would say 95% of the time I'm wearing some sort of studded trail shoe. So I have them in my truck, but there's basically, there's two options. You can buy a studded trail shoe. There's a few of them. I'll talk about which ones I have. And it's pretty much, they just have these really, I think they're carbon something. They're little like maybe stainless steel or something. They're little metal tips that are about like this big. They're when I first ordered them, I thought they were going to be like a couple inches, but no, they're an eighth of an inch, maybe a quarter of an inch. And there's probably like 10 to a dozen of them on the bottom of the shoes. So on all the big lugs, there'll be like these metal little studs in them. And they're not meant for if there's a few inches of loose snow. They're not meant for if it's icy. They're just meant for that solid, compacted trail to give you just a little bit of bite so it's not like plastic on snow and you're slipping. Because in the winter, when the trails are snowy, there's a little bit of loose snow, you lose a lot of power just because the snow kind of dissipates. Because when you're running, you want to take all the power and get it back to propel you forward. But when you're, we got somebody here. Don't mind that. But when you're running in loose snow, it's kind of like when you're running in the beach in sand. Everyone knows that feeling. It's super hard, and you're just losing all of that power to like the sand and the snow. And so the idea is to lose no power and have a grip. When your foot hits the trail, you use all that power to propel yourself forward, and your foot isn't slipping. So those studs give you that little bit of slip resistance on a perfectly smooth trail. And they're way lighter than micro spikes. You don't have to carry micro spikes. And that is what my default trail shoe is in the winter. Now, I have two different kind of studded trail runners. One of them is like a La Sportiva Blizzard They come with studs. It's a Gore-Tex winter trail shoe, and you can go with that option. That's a very good option. Most of the studded trail runners you're going to get are going to be Gore-Tex. And like I said, La Sportiva makes them. I think Speedgoats, there's Hoka came out with a version of the Speedgoats that are pretty much studded trail runners that are Gore-Tex. There's Merrell ones. All of these, I think they all have kind of typically built-in gaiters, and they're good studded Gore-Tex trail shoes. Hi there.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? So those are great. I recommend those. But another version of the studs, like you can buy a kit that just gives you those studs, and you can screw them into any shoe that you want. So I have a couple of regular old trail shoes. I think they're Speedgoats that I put 1 billion miles on. Maybe not 1 billion, maybe 1 million. And I just basically screwed my own like DIY screws into the lugs of the Speedgoats, and so it's kind of just like a crappy trail shoe beater, but those shoes are lighter than the Gore-Tex, and they're not Gore-Tex. And so I have a regular trail shoe with studs and the Gore-Tex. What are the difference between those two shoes? I think a lot of people in the winter, you want to wear Gore-Tex. They're waterproof. Obviously they're waterproof, windproof, weatherproof, and they're going to keep the snow and the cold and the water out. And I think that is very logical, and I think they're very good shoes. But what Gore-Tex shoes also do is they keep all the water in. So what I've noticed in my Gore-Tex, if I go for a long day and I'm working decently hard, like on a run for a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever hours, my feet will get sweaty. I mean, everything gets sweaty when you're running in the winter. It's just cold and you have to manage it with layers. But your feet get sweaty, and pretty much all that sweat that you work up in your shoes stays in your shoes. So I'll get done from a run with my Gore-Tex shoes. I'll take them off, and my shoes and socks will literally be dripping with water. And I don't really think that that's ideal either. I don't, obviously you don't want to be running just in wet socks and shoes and stuff, but I don't think that that's ideal either. So for me, in the winter, when it is maybe 20, like the wind chill is like 20s and above, so it's really on the line of that freezing. At the trailhead, you're probably above freezing, and then at the summit, you're probably below freezing. I think a regular trail shoe with no Gore-Tex and no insulation, if you're running and you're going for a shorter day and the trail's good, I think that a non-insulated, un-Gore-Tex trail shoe works just as good. It's obviously not going to help you if you have to stop, if you get hurt, right? Then your feet are going to get really cold. But pretty much when your feet start sweating at those around freezing temps and you're not wearing Gore-Tex, they'll dry out. And so you don't have those like super wet socks at the end of the day. And so again, it all depends on, I talked about risk in the mountains last week. It all depends on how far are you going, what mountain are you going? Are you going for an hour run? Are you going for a 2-hour run, a 4-hour run? But I think there's a line when the temperature's around freezing and you're going for 2-ish hours. I think that line is like where I make the decision of, do I want to go Gore-Tex or do I want to go non-Gore-Tex with studs? Again, the Gore-Tex shoes are a little bit heavier, so like if I was doing a speed effort uphill or even uphill and downhill, I would rather go with the Speedgoats with the studs just because they're lighter. So that's what I kind of think about that second level of the studded trail runner shoes. Now, next up from the studs are pretty much your micro spikes. Everyone knows about micro spikes. There's, they're just those things that you put around. You can put around boots and shoes, and you hear them in your bag. They're clanking around. Micro spikes is like the next step up from studded trail shoes. I don't know exactly how big they are, but they're probably like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch big. They'll give you some bite into ice depending how sharp they are. They'll give you some bite into the ice. They'll give you some bite into the snow. And if you're in your studded trail shoes and you're losing traction a little bit, you probably want the micro spikes. And there's a couple kinds of micro spikes. I think like the Catula micro spikes are usually like the golden standard. But I have a pair, and I don't have them with me today too. I'll probably like make a video with all the equipment out there. Just won't do that today. So you can see all of it. But I have a pair of, I think they're Black Diamond. I don't know what they're called, but they are the tiniest, smallest, lightest pair of spikes that you can imagine. I think there's maybe 4 spikes total. They probably weigh a fifth of what like the full micro spikes weigh. And it's basically a little bit more than the studs, but not that much more. And so, one, if you're going to carry the micro spikes, so you don't need them at the start of the trailhead, you might need them up top. You don't know yet. I would rather carry something lighter, so I like those lighter Black Diamond tiny nano micro spikes. And what I've noticed is those actually work really well. Like, you don't need those full micro spikes a lot unless it is very steep or there is a lot of snow. And so if you're kind of in between, let's say, like today I did the Osceolas. East Osceola is extremely steep. It's like 25% grade for like a mile or something. Very, very steep. That I would be like, I'd probably, if I have to put on spikes, I want my full micro spikes. But if you're going up something like a Garfield, which is like a 10 to 15% grade the whole way, I wouldn't even carry those micro spikes. I would just carry the tiny Black Diamond ones. If my studs aren't doing it, I'll throw those on. They're fast, and they're just way lighter. And so this is kind of like my progression. For micro spikes, next is crampons. So that is like if you're ice climbing, if there are sheets of ice that you need to go around, you probably need crampons. I don't own crampons, and I'm probably not going to buy crampons. I'm not into the ice climbing, ice fest. If a trail is super steep and super icy, I'm probably just not going to go on that trail on that day. That's kind of how I don't know if I'm not as adventurous as some people, but I'm just probably going to avoid it. And if you ever get into a situation without crampons and it's very icy and steep and you're on the trail, you can usually just jump into the trees, and it's not going to be fun. You got to bushwhack for a little bit and bushwhack around it. So you hear a lot about crampons, unless there are probably a couple places in the White Mountains on like regular hiking trails that you need crampons. But I think a lot of the times they're overhyped, and I don't think you really ever need crampons if you're just gonna pick a decent route on that day. And so crampons would be like the next step up. And like I said, I don't use crampons. So, and yeah, as far as like additional things to put on your feet, that is pretty much all of the traction devices before, alas, the snowshoes. The snowshoes would be the last kind of traction device. And I think trail runners, I don't know, some trail runners like the snowshoes. I like running, I like going faster, and I don't like bringing or wearing the snowshoes if I don't have to. Now, this is like a big topic. Like, I feel like the hiking community is very much like, you always need snowshoes. The trail runners are like, no snowshoes. I'm like in the middle. I think there are days where you definitely need snowshoes, and I think there are days that snowshoes are very much overkill. I think it all has to do with post-holing. But there are a couple types of snowshoes that I will say. So I think they are Dion snowshoes. I think a couple in Vermont. I think it's just a husband and a wife that make them. They're lightweight running snowshoes, and they're awesome. There's like as light of a snowshoe as you can get, and those are the ones that I typically go for. They're going to be less durable. You're going to go through them faster. They're not going to be as heavy, and in a lot of deep snow, they're not going to work as well. You're going to be working harder. There's no televator for all the televator folks out there. But they're lighter, and so that is the option that I pretty much always go with. Now, the next step up from like a light running snowshoe would be like a full scale, I don't know what you call it, like the MSRs are like the big snowshoes around here. An MSR, very much metal, grippy, heavy, bulky, but extremely good traction, very durable, can go through 2 feet of snow, can break 2 feet of snow trail. When there's 2 feet of snow on the trails, snowshoes. And so, yeah, it depends on what you're going to be doing. If you're going to be doing more hiking, more trail running, you got to see which one you want. All of these things that I talked about are very expensive. So it's nice to have a full kit of all this stuff, but sometimes you got to pick and choose. And I'm always going to choose lighter and just pick a better day and a better trail and a better trail condition to wear. So that is pretty much, that is like the winter footwear breakdown that I use. Like I said, I think if you're going to bring snowshoes, not bring snowshoes, I think it all depends on if you're going to post hole. For me, even if snowshoes make it easier, if there's like lots of that powdery dry, but you're not post holing, but there's like 3 or 4 inches of that powdery dry snow, I'm probably not going to bring my snowshoes just because it's going to be harder to move. Like, you're going to lose a lot of momentum with your feet in the snow, but you don't have that extra weight of the snowshoes carrying them. And so I think, like, time-wise, when you're on a trail, I think it just evens out, and I would just rather not deal with them. So that's my take on the snowshoes versus no snowshoes. And when you're going to post hole, just bring snowshoes. I've been in situations where I'm like, oh, I should have really brought the snowshoes. If you post hole a couple times here and there, some people will scoff at you. It's not the end of the world. Like, people post hole once in a while. But if you get to a point where you're post holing every couple steps, you need snowshoes. Go get snowshoes. So, yeah, that's the winter footwear breakdown. And then the last thing I want to talk about was gaiters. So I kind of mentioned it on the Gore-Tex trail shoes. There are lots of trail shoes that have little gaiters built into them. And it literally just looks like a sock. They just go over the ball of your ankle. And it's kind of like a mesh fabric material that's stretchy, flexible, and it contours to your ankle, so it doesn't really let snow in, essentially. Those are good. Honestly, I pretty much, if I'm wearing the Gore-Tex shoes with the gaiters, I don't add extra gaiters on top of those. Those work good enough. Does a little bit of snow get in? Yes. Does snow get on that part and then melt and then get in? Yes. But again, we're talking like your feet are getting sweaty. Like, things get sweaty in the winter and you just got to deal with it. And those gaiters are usually good enough for me. Now, if those gaiters aren't, you really want to keep all the snow out, you can get their basically ankle gaiters, which are, I think, like an outdoor research kind of company is going to make those. And those are good. They're windproof, waterproof, and they're not going to let snow in. And I would usually, unless you're like breaking trail, I would just use the ankle ones. Next up from the ankle ones, the ones that most hikers are going to wear are going to be those ones that go up to your knees. And again, they're just like Gaiters, Outdoor Research, MSR, whatever, all these companies make them. I think they do a good job of keeping the snow out. They do a good job of keeping the water out, but they also, you just get super sweaty underneath them. Hi there. How's it going? So, yeah, the Gaiters. So, again, like, it's good to keep all that water and snow out, but also you're just getting sweaty on the inside. So it's like, does it really make a difference? I don't know. Things are going to get wet and sweaty out there. And so for me, I don't even use either of those second two gaiters. Unless there's like a foot or two of new snow, I just wear the gaiters that are on the Gore-Tex shoes, or I don't even wear gaiters at all and I just deal with it. Yeah, that's what I do. And, one note, too, about the last one I want to say about the snowshoes. Those studded trail runners, you can wear those on snowshoes, but sometimes those studs can tear up the fabric on your snowshoe, especially if you have, like, a lightweight running snowshoe. So just be careful about that. There are some Gore-Tex trail shoes that don't have studs, and I do have a pair of those. And if I really know that I'm going to be in snowshoes all day, I'll wear them without the studs with the snowshoes, because the snowshoes have traction. And then you aren't worried about damaging your snowshoes. Okay, that is enough winter footwear talk. That's what I wear. If you don't know, if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, next up, just regular shoes for running on the trails and on the road shoes. I am not a big gear person. I I don't stay up to date on the latest shoes. I'm probably not the best person to ask, but this is just info to get out there. For the roads, actually, back up. My one belief in shoes, my one strong belief in shoes is if you're training high volume, especially if you're doing trails and roads or a little bit of lots of different things, mix up what shoes you're wearing. Different shoes, different shapes, different foams, different types, different heel drops. Mix up. Everyone has a lot of shoes. Wear them all. I think if you just wear one brand or one company all the time, you can develop overuse injuries, like little things with your feet or whatever. It just makes you kind of run a certain way. I think mixing it up is great. That's why a lot of high volume runners like to mix in trails, because trails, you're not just stepping the same way every time. You're taking lots of different steps, up, down, rocks, roots, and you have a less tendency for those overuse injuries. Same thing with the shoes. If you wear one shoe type, you're more prone to get like a hot spot or get used to whatever. If you wear 3 or 4 different shoes a week, which is probably what I do, you're going to just be less likely to develop those little hot spots. So my one belief, mix up your shoes, whatever you're doing. Now, what kind of shoes do I have? For road, I have Brooks Ghosts. I have Saucony Triumph. I think that's a good cushy shoe. And then I have Saucony Endorphin Speeds. Those are like my one fast shoe. I think they have a carbon plate in them, but it's like one of the higher end faster shoes. And if I do regular road stuff, I'm just wearing the regular Brooks or the Triumphs. If I'm doing speed work and I'm trying to go faster and maximize whatever splits that I'm trying to hit, times, intervals, I'll wear those carbon-plated Saucony big shoes, I call them. I got my big shoes on. So that's what I'll wear on the roads. And honestly, I usually wear the Brooks too, like to the gym. Like I just lift in those too. I don't know if that's really great for them, but I do that. And then on trails, I wear Hokas. I think Hokas, I don't know. Some people like them, some people don't like them. I wear the Speedgoats. I wear the Zinals. So the Zinals like a lighter shoe if I'm doing something faster or something local. I just wear those. The Speedgoats I like in the whites. They got a lot of cushion, so if you're going down a downhill, they got a lot of cushion to absorb it. They got some lugs, some good grip if you're running. That's what I wear on the trails. I have some craft. I've tried a few different shoes, and those are the ones that just work for me. I don't think I really am. I'm not a believer in a zero drop minimalist barefoot shoe. I think there's lots of cool research out there. I think humans should be barefoot or whatever. That's how we used to walk in the woods thousands of years ago. But I think humans aren't meant to run 100 miles, and humans aren't meant to train high volume running. I don't think that's like what we were designed to do. I think we were designed to like walk for long distances, not do a ton of running. And so I just think that cushion is, when you're doing high volume and doing these long efforts, I think you need cushion. That's just me. Maybe I just get hurt more than people, but that's my belief. And so I'll take the cushion over the zero drops. I know a lot of people like the Ultras. There's some different shoes. Topo makes a decent shoe. Mountain Runner. There's Solomon's got some good shoes. There's a lot of different shoes out there. And I think whatever is comfortable and you feel good in, that should be the shoe you go to, and mix it up. That's what I think about the shoes. Yeah. So that was the shoe talk, the gear talk. I will eventually do more of like a winter gear. I'll go through everything I bring into the mountains, and I'll kind of just, maybe I'll throw that in a couple different podcasts, but I also will make some YouTube videos that show also too what I do there. But today was just the footwear. Okay. Next up, we're done with the shoes. Next up, we're going to talk about winter Strava segments. Ooh, winter Strava segments. So, I don't know if there's not like controversy over this, but essentially, everyone knows what Strava segments are. There are these public segments that you can go and like race other people. There's leaderboards on Strava. Some of them are very competitive. Some of them are getting to the point where they're getting like race-esque. There are some segments that are very race-esque. Obviously, the Run the Whites put on the the segment challenge this year with all the throwdown segments, which was kind of like definitely a race stuff. But there are other segments that are just like a lot of people have done them and people will go out and race them. And as Strava has gotten more popular, as the segments have gotten more popular, obviously you're going to have more people going for them. They're going to get more competitive. Now, the one thing about the segments in the whites, and this goes for any mountain terrain, but especially in the whites that is like steep and technical, is it's steep, it's technical, it's rocky, and that's what makes running in the whites very, very challenging. In the winter, when you get a lot of snow, you get a lot of 4,000 feet people, gritters come out, they pack the trail down every single day with snowshoes, or every single weekend at least. When the trail gets packed down, when the temperature gets above freezing for a little bit, so that trail kind of melts and really packs down good, and then overnight when it freezes, these trails, the rocky, technical, steep trails, just become a highway. And you can bomb down these trails. Like, you can go so fast down these trails in the winter sometimes if you get the good conditions. And so the Strava winter a-hole segment season is basically when you have a route, perfect conditions come along, somebody bombs it and runs it at like a 6-minute pace or low, or like a crazy pace that nobody could ever do in the winter or in the summer without risking broken bones. And you can just go and get a bunch of crowns and get a bunch of segment times. And I think, here are my thoughts on it. I think, again, as everything's gotten more popular, more people are getting out, there's going to be a lot of segments that just start going down because people run in the winter. I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, not as many people ran in the winter. Trail running is getting more popular. Winter running is getting more popular. These trails up here are getting more popular, so they get packed down more, and more people are running. And a lot of these trails that get packed down, they have winter times on them, and once you get a winter time, it's very, very hard to get a summer time back. And is there something wrong with that? My answer, no. There's not anything wrong with that. Don't hate the player, hate the game. It's like this it's a thing out here, and if one person runs in the winter and you had that time, you got mad that they took it in the winter, just go out in the winter and take it back. That's what I think about it. There's nothing really wrong with it. But if there is a time or a leaderboard with lots of summer times and the crown is a summer time, I think you should not be going out there in the winter and trying to bomb down that trail to get that time. It's just way faster. And so any crown in the whites, a downhill crown, because uphill I think is easier in the summer. Uphill, I don't think the paved trail makes up for just the rocks and the grip in the summer conditions, like not having to wear winter gear. So the uphill times are safe. But the downhill times, if there's a crown that is a dry summer time and you go purposely and take it in the winter, I think it's kind of lame. That's me personally. But it depends on the segment. There are a lot of people that go out for not an easy run, but they'll just go out on a regular run and they can take a Strava time in the winter. And so I'm not going to go tell them like, hey, you have to go super slow on every trail. Like if you're just running and you get it, cool. Like I'm totally good with that. But a lot of these times are getting competitive, and if you have to go all out max heart rate to get it, and it's a summertime and you're doing it in the winter, that's what I think is kind of lame. Again, depending on how many people have done the segment, so if it's less than 100 people have done a segment, it's probably not like a super fast competitive time. And so there it's like, all right, you may not have been going super hard, like just go get crown, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But if they're really hard if there's more than a couple hundred goes on it, or someone's had a couple good, like just hard runs and they have it in the summer, I just like the technical mountain running aspect of it. And I think once you make that a winter time, it's like you can't go back. You cannot take it back. I guess you could make your thing private, but so yeah, that's what I think about it. I think if there are like summer times or boards with lots of summer times to them, just steer clear. Like there's so many good, like if you want like a competitive time or like you want to race a downhill segment or you want to bomb, like bombing down mountains are just super fun. But max heart rate bomb all out. If you're going to do it, there's tons of winter downhill times out there. Do it on the time on one of those trails that already have it. Now, there are a handful of trails that are like immune to this winter downhilling because like all the roads get closed in the winter. So Triple I Road, the Zealand Road, like all of these different roads, Jefferson Notch Road, all of these roads get shut. So the trails don't get packed down. And so you can't do a fast time on a downhill where the trailhead is on a closed road. So Tecumseh from Triple I actually don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure that's not a winter time. Osceola's from Triple I. I'm sure that's not a winter time. Jefferson from Jefferson Notch Road. I'm sure that's not a winter time. So all of these different times are like pristine summer conditions, and they get to keep it like that. So if you're looking for a time that you want to send a downhill, like you want to have a good downhill rip and you want a crown that doesn't get taken by the winter, just go on one of those segments. Another note too is, and this is all like crown seeking, like crown chasing. I think there are definitely different, if you're doing like a time trial on a mountain, like Chris Daly has his blog. Chris Daly's blog is awesome. If you like the White Mountains, if you like knowing about trails, he probably has one of the best blogs, informations out there on anything White Mountains 4,000 footer related. That dude loves the White Mountains, and he's just a good dude. And he has this thing where over like a decade, he's basically wanted to do as fast as he can up and down one summit at a time. And in his case, a lot of the time, the fastest way to do it is in the winter. And so that's like a passion project. Like he doesn't care about Strava crowns. Like he's not going out there just hunting for crowns. And so I think that if you have like a passion project like that, I think that's cool. Like I'm not like hating on winter downhill running. Like I go out there and I'm definitely gonna bomb some downhills in the winter. But you know, if you're like I said, if you're aiming at a summertime in the winter, then that's where the tables get a little bit turned. And if you want to do it, fair game. Like I think do it. Like there's nothing against it, but it's not as good. And if I look at a board and I see number 1 as a winter and I see number 2 as a summer, I'm thinking I'm more impressed by that summertime on a downhill board. Now, this raises the question, should there be winter Strava segment boards and non-winter Strava segment boards? I don't know. Like, if Strava segments get super popular, they keep getting more popular, then at some point, maybe it is warranted. Like, I would be interested in seeing that information. I think it'd be cool to see who has the best who's like the best technical dry mountain runners on certain segments. Because the other thing in the winter is if you can just come up on the weekends, it's hard. There's a lot of people out there, so it's hard to bomb nut trails. Sometimes it just snows every Saturday, or rains every Saturday, so you don't get good conditions. If you come out on a Monday, Tuesday, like you don't have to work and you can come up on Monday, Tuesdays after the trails have gotten packed down, melted out, froze up, those are the best days to come out here. So, yeah, do we want a summer and winter board? Maybe one day. But that leads us into the winter FKT talk that I wanted to talk about. And so this is kind of a similar topic. And I think the Prezi Traverse FKT, if you go on the FKT website, there was a big hoot and ha about, back and forth about should the Prezi Traverse be run in winter conditions versus summer. And ultimately, I don't know how the time shook out, but ultimately it was determined that if you run the Prezi in the winter, it should be a different category. It shouldn't be the overall Prezi FKT because obviously running the Prezis in the winter is way faster. The northern Prezis, if they just get packed down into a highway, like you can never touch those times in a million years on those crazy technical rocks in the summer. And so winter has its own challenges, and it's not saying that it's just like a cakewalk in the winter, but it's two different kinds of competition. And I think as trail running is getting more popular, more developed, like it used to just be races. Now FKTs, a lot of FKTs are like almost like race efforts. And so eventually, I think Strava segments are going to kind of be like the old FKTs, and eventually you're going to be racing Strava segments are going to be like the new FKT. And it's just something to think about. So as the FKTs got more popular, there's a winter section for a lot of these different FKTs. And I think like the premier ones in the whites, like I know there's a Hut Traverse winter. There's a lot, the 48 4,000 footers winter, the Prezi winter. I'm sure there's a Pemi winter. There's a winter category for the premier FKTs up here because it's totally different conditions. And if you want to race that and be competitive on that, it's just two different categories. Go against your own category. So that all makes sense to me. I guess that all kind of makes sense. But again, there are some FKTs, like I think there are some FKTs, just regular FKTs, that have been done in the winter. So for me, if they don't make a winter category and it's already ran in the winter, then you can go out and you can run that same FKT if you want to do it in the winter. But if there's an FKT that there's no winter designation for it, it's run in the summer, and you go out and run it in the winter, I don't know. I think there should be a different designation for that because it's just a different competition. This is going to be a special treat. This is not my joke, but because you've lasted this long, I always think like not a lot of I always think that the people that lasted this long, thank you. I appreciate you listening. I really hope you enjoy the podcast. I'm trying to like keep bringing you guys different info and but yeah, if you've made it this long, you're going to get this golden nugget. Here's a little joke for you. There was a cop on the highway, just stopped on the interstate, and he sees a guy driving a car down the highway, and in the back seat there's a bunch of penguins, and so he goes and pulls the car over, and he's like, "What are you doing with these penguins? Like, you got to bring these penguins to the zoo." And the guy's like, "Okay, sorry, officer, I will do that." And he takes off. The next day comes around, and the cop's sitting in the same spot, and he sees the car go by again, and the guy's driving the car, and in the back seat the guy still has the penguins in the back seat, and all of the penguins are wearing sunglasses. So this guy throws on his lights, and he stops and he's like, "Hey, I thought I told you that you had to bring these penguins to the zoo." And the guy goes, "Yeah, I took them to the zoo. Today we're going to the beach." Okay, so if you made it through the FKT talk, there's the joke. There's for your courage. Okay. Next up, the JFK 50 miler in a Scutney backyard. I talked about these already. They're going on right now. We'll have the results next week. Boom. Next topic. Winter cross training. Yeah, in the winter, it gets pretty hard for me to run every single morning when it's in the single digits, in the teens, in the 20s. I think on an easy run, like in the fall, if I go on an easy run, I don't even really sweat that much. It's I do my easy runs very easy, keep them very light. I don't get super warm. So in the winter, you have to really bundle up to stay warm. On your easy runs, but then your hard runs, it's like you have to really start cold, and then eventually you're going to get too hot if you do have lots of layers. And it's just kind of an added stress. And I think that's why a lot of people don't move out of New England and don't train in New England, because the winters are very tough. And for me, I like cross-training a lot. I think probably the best cross-training in the winter would be cross-country skiing or ski touring. Unfortunately, I don't want to deal with all the equipment, get all the equipment. I like to go hike, run on the weekends. In the week, there's not really snow around me where I could do that. It's very expensive. These are the reasons why I don't get into the skiing as much. I think that is like the ideal cross training. Ideal for fun, ideal for mixing it up, doing some different muscle groups. And if you're into skiing, cross-country skiing, ski touring, good for you. That is awesome cross training. I admire you. And one day, I mean, if I lived up here, I would definitely get into that stuff. It's just around me, it doesn't make practical sense where we don't have snow all, for the whole winter, a lot of winters. And so I think that's like the ideal cross training in the winter. But for me, I really just go to the gym. I do stairs, the Stairmaster. I do the incline treadmill. I do the bike. I do the elliptical. And for me, what really gets me through the winter, I think, one, actually, at the gym I go to, they have a bike with a little kind of a Peloton-y screen. It's not a Peloton, but it has a screen. I'll flip it. You can go and put on like YouTube videos, or it has kind of like video of like different little countries, whatever that thing is called. So it's like you're bicycling through Paris. But so that's kind of like entertaining, but you kind of get bored of that because just a bike on the bike trainer with no music or no anything, it's just brutal. But I like going on YouTube, and I like throwing on, for some reason, cross-country skiing, like Olympic cross-country skiing events, biathlon, all of these things, electric to watch. And for some reason, the winter just gets me in the mood to cross-train. So if you get throw on a good video, that's like a good way to cross-train. I think the indoor bike is, for me, the most boring cross-training, but you got to do it. But I do a lot of Stairmaster and incline treadmill, and my key to kind of keep it fresh, obviously get some headphones in, listen to music, podcasts, videos, whatever, all that stuff helps. But for me, if you're trying to do like a couple hours at the gym of cross training, mixing it up, one is really good to kind of emulate the mountain training. So I'll go like Stairmaster for a half hour, incline treadmill for a half hour, back to the stairs. Maybe I go do the sled at the gym, like pushing and pulling the sled back and forth. Really mixing it up, and then go to elliptical for a half hour. When I have like half hour bursts of things, then you can break it up like, I'll just do 15 minutes and then I'll do another 15, and then you get through that. And it's like, it's going pretty quick. And then I've been here for a couple hours, and that's like a good like indoor mountain day, I call them. And so we're getting to the point where I think cross-training, if you just grind through the winter and you run outdoor in the winter, you're probably just missing a little bit you're probably taking in more stress than you're actually gaining. And I think some quality indoor cross-training can actually benefit you more. And so in the winter, lean into the cross-training, because in the summer, you're usually just slamming miles. In the winter, get back to weightlifting, get back to cross-training, get some different strength. When you're on the bike and you do a little bike workout, you get exposed, like, my legs aren't as strong as I thought it was. If I do a Stairmaster workout, I have a little bit more to work on here. And so it's a good way to mix it up and kind of push yourself in the gym. So if you haven't really reintroduced yourself to the gym, weightlifting, and indoor cross-training, do it. Train hard, and you're probably going to get some gains that you've been missing off by just running every day. Especially in the winter. For me, my philosophy is you want to run every day if you're in the build-up to an ultra, but if you're not in the build-up to an immediate ultra and you're just developing speed, strength, it's good to do all the different things. I think if you just run 6 or 7 days a week and that's all the training you do, you're probably missing out on some strength gains and just some different skills that are going to benefit you in the mountains. On roads, you probably don't need much other skills than just running on the roads. But in the mountains, I think upper body, lower body strength, agility, athletic ability, all of these things help you outside of just running economy and fitness. You can get fitness cross-training. The only thing you don't get as much is running economy, but in the mountains, you don't need it as much. You need hiking economy. You need downhill economy. And all that stuff you can actually get in the gym. So get to the gym, do some cross-training. It's going to benefit you. Okay, second to last thing, motivation minute. The quote is, the secret ingredient is ... nothing. To make something special, you have to believe it is special. This is from Kung Fu Panda, the panda bear asks his dad, what's the secret ingredient to the soup? And the dad goes, the secret ingredient is nothing. To make something special, you have to believe it's special. And the panda goes, at first he's mad. And then he goes, the secret ingredient is nothing. And then when the Kung Fu Panda, he goes and gets the dragon scroll, he opens the dragon scroll because he was chosen the dragon warrior. There's nothing on the scroll. the big secret everyone's been waiting for. There is nothing. And so I like that quote. Clearly, I just watched Kung Fu Panda. I saw the quote and then I was like, I think I want to watch Kung Fu Panda, so I watched Kung Fu Panda. But I really think that this is a good quote. So the secret ingredient is nothing. To make something special, you have to believe it's special. I think what I hear over and over and over about anything that's done anything great or extraordinary or seemingly impossible, there's no secret ingredient. There's nothing special that separates them from you. That, like, a champion, I think there's lots of different quotes that you can bring in, but like a champion is not that much different than the top 20 competitors. They just work every single day, do the right things every single day for years. That's what gets them there. And so, yes, there's lots of talent. There's lots of genetics in this thing. But I think there's a lot less than you think. And so you need to make sure that you are doing all of those little things. If you have big goals, probably you're not dreaming big enough, but if you want to reach them, there's nothing crazy that you need. There's nothing that you don't have. All you need to do is grind and be disciplined every single day. Do whatever that goal is. Whoever can do that goal in your mind, do what they would do every single day for a long time, and you will get there. In the second half of that quote, the quote is, you have to believe it's special. You hear the top athletes of all different sports, all different walks of life. A lot of them have this unbelievable, undeniable belief in themselves. And I think belief is something almost as necessary as talent, as necessary as hard work. I think you have to 100% believe every single day in what your goal is and what you're capable of to really get to that next level. And so obviously, to become the Dragon Warrior, there's no secret ingredient, and you just have to truly believe that you're a Dragon Warrior, and then you can beat that mean little tiger guy who was in jail all those years. But I think it's a theme that I've heard about. Like, everyone listens to motivational things. You see online, see these different things. And I really think it is a theme from all these people who have a goal, set out to do it, and accomplished it. They just reiterate, there's nothing special. You just have to work way harder than you're working right now and believe in whatever you're working for. Do it for a long time, and you will get there. And so that's just like the if you have a dream, you're probably not dreaming big enough, and you're definitely not working hard enough. That's what I think about things. You look at somebody else who has something that you want, or something that they did something that you want to try to do. There's nothing different between you and them. They have just worked like they wanted it, and they believed hard enough. So work harder, believe more, and you're going to accomplish your goals. That being said, yeah, I watched the Kung Fu Panda. I think I watched it when I was younger. I definitely remember kind of bits of it or watching it. That movie's pretty electric. It's a good short movie, hour and a half. It wasn't super drawn out. There's some funny things. It's obviously a kid's movie. It's a cartoon. But that old turtle, he's got some good quotes in there. Every time that old turtle with the cane is walking around talking to people, listen to what that guy is saying. That was his quote. Actually, no, this actually wasn't his quote, but he's got some good quotes in there. It's a good movie. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, watch it. As soon as, they say, oh my God, Ty Lee or whatever his name was is going to escape prison, is going to come and destroy the town, or is going to, come into the valley and take over. The Shifu, the master, sends out a little bird to the prison. He tells the prison guard, hey, you got to double your security. The old turtle had a vision that this guy's going to break out and terrorize the village. And as soon as the scene goes in there, well, I shouldn't ruin it, actually, yeah. if you're, this is the end of the episode. If you want to watch Kung Fu Panda after this, stop it right now because I'm going to spoil the whole thing. But you walk in there and the little bird comes in there and there's all these big tough rhinos are like, what do you do? What do you mean we need to double your guard? You think this isn't tough enough? And the rhino's like, I'm just the messenger. Or the little bird's like, I'm just the messenger. He's like, we're going to go look at Tai Li. And they go down into this big cave with all the security, thousands of little rhinos and hippos securing this one prisoner. This guy's like super bad or whatever, this tiger. And the bird kind of jumps up and one feather floats in the air. And immediately I'm like, that feather is going to be the reason why the tiger breaks out. And then they go down. And, of course, the feather falls to the tiger. He takes it with his tail. He unlocks the thing with his tail. The tiger breaks out. And I think it's very ironic because if the Shifu didn't send the little bird to the prison, Tai Li never would have got out, and that prophecy wouldn't have been fulfilled. So it's kind of like I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that. I thought that was pretty deep for Kung Fu Panda. And then essentially, yeah, the big fat panda got picked as the Dragon Warrior over the 5, Kung Fu Master Black Belt Warriors. And everyone was really mad at the panda because how could the panda? He stinks at Kung Fu. And then the Shifu Master was super mad. And eventually the panda finds out there's no secret ingredient. He has these different powers because he loves food so much. All these other warriors, they try to go out and stop Tai Li before he comes back and destroys the village. And of course, the only person that can save everybody, the panda. And the panda is hitting the tiger with, he doesn't know any Kung Fu, but he's hitting him with his big belly. He's going up. He's doing all these different things. He's getting lucky. He's falling down. He's sitting on the tiger, and he's so fat that the tiger gets hurt. He stepped on the tiger's toes, and then he hit him with the squadouche because he understood the dragon scroll, and he understood the power of the skadoosh, and he ultimately defeated Tai Li. And yeah, so that was my Kung Fu Panda recap. Electric movie, you should watch it. Good quotes in there. And then the last thing I mentioned on tea era, I was in my tea era for 5 days. I was sick. I was doing these herbal teas, and it was very, it was getting very cold, the winter, and the little warm tea was, I've never been a tea guy. I like coffee, especially in the winter once in a while. Like on the weekend, I'll just have a cup of coffee. I don't drink it every day, but I had tea I was having tea twice a day this week, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm embracing this tea life. It's warm, it's cozy. I'm gonna get in bed and watch a little something in the blankets with this tea. I was enjoying the tea era. I haven't had a tea in 3 days, so I think I'm over it. But if you've been sleeping on tea, try it this winter, and try it while watching Kung Fu Panda. All right. That is enough. That is enough for today. Yeah, I got to get going anyway. We're over an hour. Thank you for listening again. I appreciate the support. Hopefully, this has been helpful. We're going to keep doing different topics. Let me know if you like the training topics more, if you like the gear topics more, the race coverage more. I'm not really always 100% caught up on the news. Like, I know the races that I like. But if there's something that I'm missing, you're like, oh, this guy totally missed about talking about this. I probably just haven't seen it. And so I'll look into it and I'll give you my thoughts on it. And another kind of exciting thing is I'm working on getting my ultra running coaching certificate or certification. There's a couple different ones that I think are valuable, so I'm doing some getting those, and ultimately hope to do some coaching in the ultra running, mountain running realm. And I've learned a few things that I think are interesting, and a few things that are kind of that I've learned through my own training. That I'm like, I knew this worked, and I just didn't know the scientific reasons. But here are the scientific reasons. And so I'm gonna do a couple podcasts about some of the things that are very important that I think about training, that I think people should be incorporating. So we'll talk about some of those. Yeah, and we'll do some more training theory talk. We'll do some more winter stuff, and we're just going to keep these episodes rolling. So that's all I have for today. I appreciate everybody watching. I'm going to keep doing these if you guys keep watching. So if you made it this far, thank you. You're the reason why I'm still going. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Peace.